Designated Survivor Season 2 premiere 1 year in. So Designated Survivor has officially returned, and I'd say this was actually a pretty good start to the season. We are getting a brand new character in Lior, who is introduced as like this very eccentric character. I thought he was actually pretty interesting, and he kind of steps on a lot of toes, but ultimately, he ends up being okay, at least by Kirkman standards. He seems to be a good addition, and then, like, it's basically like half and half. It's like, you have two people who like, he's cool, and then we have our other two people, so it's split down the middle. But once the president says cool, everyone else has to be like, yep, me too, I think he's great. So he ends up joining the team, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm excited to see how they use his character, because he's so different from everyone else, where he's like, he's like steps on people's toes, but it's not to be disrespectful. It's just like, I think this is wrong and I think this is right, and he says it. He's honest about it. So I'm excited to see how they utilize his character in both serious and comedic fashions. But other than that, we have our regular cast of characters. We have the very beginning of the episode, everything's rebuilt, and they have a nice little moment where it's like, this is a great symbol, and it's like, it's supposed to be this really cool moment, and then of course they cut to like, it's the 1 year anniversary of Kirkman being in office, and he's walking down the hallway, and everyone's watching the same TV show, and it's like, yep, his presidency is in ruins, he spent a bunch of money, and it's like he's in a tailspin, he did that to try to save himself, but it's still horrible, and it was just really funny. They didn't really end up touching on it, but that's definitely a common theme from the first season, where people are, everyone's watching the same thing, and it's like, oh, hey, as if they weren't watching the exact same thing about someone saying he sucks, or he's failing, or he's about to fall. So I thought that was cool, because that's something we saw quite a few times, in the last season. Everyone watching the shows in different parts of the White House. So I thought that was cool, and then we get to see exactly what Wells is up to. So I thought that was great, because I like the way they're doing that. I'm very excited to see, because it seemed, well, at least for this episode, it seemed like it was going to be jumping all over the place, but then by the time it ends, we find out that Lloyd has actually returned to the States, but she's in the Netherlands. She ends up running into, I believe it was an MI6 agent. She bashes him in the head. Turns out he was an MI6 agent, so she knocked him in the head. She's searching through his whole apartment and everything. One thing, this is super nerdy, but when she was searching through his house and she opened up the drawer that had like the false bottom in it, I noticed there was a cord in there that was for like the Xbox 360, because I'm a super nerd, so I just wanted to randomly mention that just because. But they end up teaming up. I'm curious how long he's going to actually be in the show, like how many episodes are going to have him in there, because I would assume she's not really going to be teaming up with this guy the whole season. I don't think he'll be going back to the States, but ultimately they do have the same goal, to capture this guy, so maybe he'll be a part of the show for, maybe like the first third of this season, and then who knows, maybe he'll end up, being killed off or something like that. But I would assume he's not going to be, a main cast member for the entire season, just like Lior is, actually joining the White House staff. But I'm excited to see where that goes, with them kind of following Lloyd's trail, and of course them being led back to the States. And that seems to be like a big part of what they showed off for the promo for the rest of this season, where Kirkman has to deal with, at least in one episode, of course there were like multiple things that were like insanely dramatic. They have like this crazy virus thing that's going off. There's someone, they don't really show who they're talking to. I feel like they cut it up to make it seem like a specific person, but they don't really show who Kirkman's talking to. But there's some really dramatic thing where he has to make a decision. He's like, I have to do this, and I'm not going to let you send it my way. There's the virus thing. Of course, there's Lloyd going after his family. So there are definitely some big elements coming up for this season that I'm definitely looking forward to. And I think they did a good job introducing some of the smaller things for this season. Of course, Lloyd showing up being one of the bigger things at the end of the episode. But Seth getting this job opportunity to leave the White House, which ultimately seems like it kind of, that went away by the end of this episode. But I wouldn't be surprised if they brought that back. It was like his one moment where he kind of has to talk about it, and it's like, well, I felt like I was kind of screwing up, or else, mostly I feel like I just don't matter. It doesn't really matter what happens with me being here. But ultimately he decides to stick around, and like, that could easily be resolved, and it would make perfect sense. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if that did end up coming back into play, maybe, later in the season. But I definitely like this episode. The story for it revolving around Kirkman, outside of, naturally him solving the issue of this hijacking, he also ends up losing a friend by the end of the episode. And I like the way that they kind of played around with that element, where as soon as he read it, he, like, they don't really put it out there in the very beginning, but it's fairly obvious, like, once he's reading through the list, that he knew someone, and it kind of gave him pause for a second. So we get a little bit of history on this person who used to be a great friend of his, and then he felt like they had a huge falling out because he got a great offer, and so he didn't go on this trip with his friend, and they had an argument, and that was pretty much it. They never, they never talked after that. But he does learn by the end that his friend was never really mad at him. They had that big argument, but he never like hated him or anything. So I like the way they kind of play through that element, and then he has his normal speech that he gives pretty much like every couple of episodes. There's some speech because something happened that isn't exactly perfect, and so he gives a great speech at the end. But all in all, I think it was definitely excuse me. I think it was definitely sorry. I don't know why my throat's clogged up. Winter season, fall and winter coming in, messing with my sinuses. But I think it was definitely a great start to the season, and I'm definitely looking forward to what they do with this, especially with Lloyd being a big factor now that they know who he is, and he's like, worldwide. They even with the MI agent, it's like, hey, yeah, he's wanted by us as well, which is why we should team up. So he's wanted by a lot of different countries. There are a lot of random issues going on just in this one episode that are kind of touched on, and then of course with the promo for the rest of the season, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of shown later, which who knows exactly what Lloyd is or is not involved in. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was a part of this whole virus thing. That just seems like it fits because it's a big attack that can threaten a ton of different people. So that wouldn't really surprise me if he happened to be involved in that. But either way, I'm looking forward to this season. Like I said, I thought this was a fairly decent start to season 2 and going into adding new characters, showing exactly where things lie as far as current threats. Mostly with Lloyd, like he seems to be like the one thing, but we know that he has like this weird, like secretive army that meets like in this random city all the time. So he kind of does have his own army behind him, but for now it's kind of just him. They talk about how they've gotten a lot of his associates and things like that, and they've done everything they could to pretty much stop his flow of money, but he still has those people there to help him out. So I am looking forward to how that's utilized throughout this season. But of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this premiere, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And based on the promo, I would love to know what you guys are looking forward to seeing the most for this season. If there was something that wasn't shown in the promo, something that you guys just want to see in general as far as the story elements, maybe something with the characters. There's like a little bit of development definitely to be had. Of course, we have one new character, but there's still a ton of development. We're only in season 2. There's a lot to be shown for the main cast members and to see exactly where they go based on certain issues that they have, just their working relationships and everything like that. So I would love to know what you guys want to see from this season, whether it's just your own ideas or from the promo that they showed off at the end of the episode. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.